Start us off, Carter.
Hello, everyone. It is I, the Grinch. I am here to, in the spirit of the holiday, talk about who has made my naughty list, who makes me feel Grinchy. I would like to thank the Castpod Network for hosting me. Let us begin with number one. The Kingdom of Okay, everyone, let's hear it for the Grinch. Thank you for coming on, bud. I really appreciate all the work you put into this. Don't call us; we're gonna lose your number. Kevin, I am so sorry. I didn't know he was gonna get political right off the
I
bat. I
mean,
thought we'd have a little more time. We ran it like 3 times, and he didn't. He this is
all
Kangri.
right.
Like he.
Here's the thing, man. Like, you vouched for this guy, and I was just
Yeah,
like,
I
"Are you
know.
sure?" Like, and you
I
told me
know.
about the
I
run through, so
know.
I decided I have time. I'm gonna go get a bev. I'll be in the break
I
room.
know. I
You
know.
got
I'm
this.
sorry. I know. I fucked up. It won't happen again. I'm gonna work on my vetting process. Like, yeah, I'm gonna take that one on the chin. I'm willing to go on probation. I stuck my neck out, and I got decapitated. I'll own that.
All right.
Um,
I'll
like
talk
a
it off
oh
with the
god,
other fellas. Callum's away. Tom's a little sick, so like maybe we could brush this under the rug, but under the lug or under the rug. But like
if anyone's a lug in our group, it's me. I fall asleep on my
I
chair
think
like a 50-year-old alcoholic.
I
I'm a
think
30-year-old alcoholic.
I
Thank you
think
very
we're gonna
much.
have to give you a one intro probation, and then
Oh,
consider more
man.
serious options if next week doesn't land.
It's a risk you take. It's a risk you take. But anyway, welcome to dude. Welcome back to Don't Sleep on Football. Carter here.
And I'm seriously
Oh
considering texting
man,
Callum. I was like, if you have a
can
bit
you
that doesn't
record something on your
land, can
phone?
you just shoot me like 5 intros?
Jesus. Um, well, what's amazing is I was going to make an even more off-color joke about decapitation, but then I decided better of it, and not the way you think. I'll tell you off mic. Um, Welcome to week 15. We are kicking off. We decided to kick off the December segment of our season with a true shocker of a week. Uh, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and kind of a monumental change in how the NFL playoffs are going to
I
go.
I feel like we always talk about like what is going to be like a big impact week, and I always keep saying like week 16 and 17, but
Mhm.
it feels like it was week 15 this year.
Right.
I think,
Which is incredible because we don't have any division winners yet. This is
yeah, there's no
like,
division winners, but when I was updating the eliminations and stuff, it,
mhm,
give me 1 second just to pull it back up. But like, because I do the updates for like playoff picture and who's in and who's
mhm.
out, the lowest chance overall of like as of right now currently for the playoff picture, AFC 96%, NFC 89%. So like, or sorry, 79. I
Mhm.
was just looking at wildcard seats, 79 and 60, which is still very
Right.
high, and it's from two expected divisions, the AFC North and NFC South.
Well, you know what it is? I think a big part of it is like obviously a lot of teams get eliminated before Christmas. They have to put on a brave face and kind of just gut it out for a prolonged period of time. Like you're playing for your jobs, you're playing for your next contract, whatever. Like what we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
But this week felt consequential and monumental in terms of like eliminations from teams that we actually had like high, great expectations for. The last 2 weeks, like I would argue there are one, two, three, four, and depending on how you felt about Minnesota coming into the season, maybe five teams who had like genuine, like not
Legitimate hope.
sarcastic, yeah, legitimate playoff aspirations, legitimate like we are going to contend and we are going to win at least one playoff game expectations. Teams who put their chips in, teams who have been building up to something. One team in particular who has been on a historic, monumental 8-year run. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Hell, even if you want to be generous, well, no, everyone was clowning on Miami coming in. But,
Yeah.
like, they've been to the playoffs recently.
Yeah, no, they've made it to the playoffs, but they've never been like, we're gonna win playoffs. Aren't they the
I mean,
biggest
that's
drought
fair.
team to win a playoff game?
Yes, I know we're skipping ahead to eliminations, but I will pull up this list just for the fun of it. I actually just posted this in our fantasy group. Um, yes, so currently, no playoff wins, longest active drought. So the Miami Dolphins at 25 seasons, the Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders at 23, the Los Angeles Angels at 16, the New York Jets at 15, the Buffalo Sabres at 14, and the Chicago Bears at 14. Again, I cannot overstate enough how embarrassing the Sabres are relative to. It is so easy to make the playoffs in hockey in terms of like you either need a good goalie and you have to be good on the penalty kill. And for some reason, we just haven't been able to figure those out for like 14 years, despite, we had genuinely the guy who might have been the greatest goalie in American hockey history, and we just haven't been able to fix it since. They actually just fired their GM, Adams, who was a real piece of work. Like, I talk about Brandon Bean being kind of an arrogant douchebag. This guy made a quip where he's like, well, it's hard to get people to come to Buffalo. We don't have palm trees, we have taxes. So people started bringing inflatable palm trees and throwing them onto the ice. Uh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no,
We have palm. We don't have
we
palm
don't have
trees.
palm trees.
We
That's
have
what you fucking
taxes.
go with?
That's his fucking line.
Yeah, no, and what's sad is that's almost verbatim. I think I changed like 2 words, and it wasn't palm trees and taxes. I'll tell you that for free. Yes, but people under every social media post, people would be tweeting palm trees. People were bringing like inflatable palm trees and coconuts to the games. It's
Oh my
actually
god, I love
amazing.
it.
He lasted another season and a half after that. Um, but yes, again, as again, Bills pundit Victoria Zeller once said, imagine a Pittsburgh Pirates level of futility and hopelessness, but you happen to be in one of like the 3 or 4 biggest markets for the sport. Um, will it get better? Will it get worse? Will a secret third thing happen? Who knows? But yes,
I might
so
have to add that to like my love of
lexicon.
infamous like speeches and stuff.
Yeah, let's
Where my
ride. No one,
killers
the
at?
moon. Where your
What
killers at?
about the moon? Broncos country,
Yeah.
let's ride.
Oh
We
God!
don't
It
cut
no,
palm
it really
trees, we
was.
got
People were
taxes.
talking. Yeah, I'm pulling up the quote now. Like, I know we're derailing this episode early, but like, I need to pull up the quote. It's a pretty breezy week in terms of discussion points. There are like 2 or 3 big things that happened this week. We don't have palm tree. Yeah. Let's see.
So you
Hold
hear
on.
that?
All
If you
right.
see a palm tree, you don't pay taxes.
Yeah, that's the rules. Yeah, no, it literally was.
So fucking good.
Buffalo is not a destination city. We don't have palm trees. We have taxes. That's literally it. We don't have palm trees, period. We have taxes, period.
How is that not so funny?
He was the GM for like 8 years.
Yeah,
He
'cause
was the GM for the majority of this period.
I feel like you couldn't fire him after that point for the sole purpose of he's going to bring heat and people like for the fucking palm tree stuff, and it's just like, yeah, people are just gonna bring that stuff in.
Yeah. Like, I forget which team is famous for having people bring squids to the game or octopi to the game and throwing them on the court, or the rink. Palm trees. I mean, it's a little healthier, certainly. They're just inflatable. I mean, I suppose it's plastic pollution, but yeah, classic. Again, there are 2 things I wish my dad got to live to see: Josh Allen win a Super Bowl and this douchebag get fired. But at least one of them happened this year, and maybe the other one will happen. Shall we dive into the highlights?
Yeah, let's get into it.
It was a
I'm
fascinating
gonna get
week
that
because
tattooed on me. Sorry.
it's funny because like the inconsequential games, the games that really didn't matter for like seating and placement, those were blowouts. So like, for example, Bears Browns, an impressive game from the Bears. Like, it's
Yeah.
nice to see their defense step up, step back for Shador. Bengals Ravens, the Bengals are effectively out of it now. Well, they're officially eliminated
They're
this week.
officially in like
Yeah.
whatever it is. They're
It's
that.
the first like competent game we've seen from the Ravens in a while. The Eagles did exactly what we politely asked them
Thank
to and
God.
mollywopped the Raiders. We'll
Like,
talk about the goose egg in a
I was
minute.
gonna say, there's nothing to talk about, like, in the pro Eagle department about that, but outside, because it was just like, this is what they needed to do. They needed to just put the hurt on the Raiders, because if you look like an idiot against such a bad team, you're
Mhm.
going to look like a bad time. So it's just like,
Yes.
yeah, no, you went out, did your job, and you went home. That's it.
Yeah. The Jags game, the Texans game, like the
Yeah,
games that really either a team was already eliminated or it didn't really matter, those were complete blowouts. Whereas
correct.
every game that actually had consequential seeding, consequential, like, this will decide who wins their division, what their seeding is, and
Hot
whether or not they'll
games.
make the playoffs. Yeah, a smorgasbord of tight games. The 16-13 matchup between the Chargers and the Chiefs,
Hot
the
game.
Bills Patriots game, which we will talk about.
Hot game.
Obviously, the Commanders Giants didn't matter, but at least they put on a show.
Yeah,
The Broncos Packers game, which we'll talk about in a minute, ended
pretty
up
hot
being
game.
a one-score game, right? Because you could, if they got the two-point
2 point
conversion.
conversion and stuff. Yeah,
Rams Lions was a one-score game.
hot game.
Saints Panthers was a one-score game.
Surprisingly
Colts.
hot game.
Oh yeah. Titans 49ers, which obviously didn't really matter, but it matters for the seeding. The 49ers are still in the playoff hunt. They still kind of need to keep winning.
Yeah,
Um, Most baffling 10-4 team we'll have for quite a long time. The Colts Seahawks game was close. Even
hot.
Vikings Dallas was relatively close, all things considered.
That was a weird game, but it was a pretty hot game.
Right.
But that's probably
Um,
because the Cowboys lost. I probably wouldn't have said it if it was the other way around.
right. You would have been like, fuck nine, that dweeb. Um, and I do think it is like, I think this
Yeah.
is the year where, like, again, parity is always like the talking point in most sports leagues, like particularly the NFL and the NBA. It's parity, parity, parity. Like, we make all of these rules, we put all of these systems in place with the hope that, like, you know, there's going to be a good level of competition. That even teams who suck will at least make it interesting, will at least put up a good fight. And I really do think, at least for the NFL, this is like the most parity driven year we've had in quite a long time, where nothing felt like a formality, where like
Hmm.
more games are in serious consideration than we've had in quite a long time.
Yeah, I think it's it feels like a very serious season, but also a very
Mhm.
not serious season, depending on the specifics of what team you're looking at.
Right.
I think our playoff picture teams, very serious seasons, very interesting seasons. But like the already eliminated teams, it's just like, what are you doing here, man?
Right. I do think this is it's fascinating because I feel like this year, it's funny, for a year that doesn't really have like a marquee quarterback prospect, I feel like the discussion of tanking, like, I feel like the discussion of tanking has escalated,
I think,
particularly in like the last few years, because we've
yeah,
had three or four of the same teams at the bottom rung for so long who always somehow play themselves out of the first pick. Um, so and yet, like, the actual players themselves seem to be actively refuting that idea,
hmm
actively refuting the idea of like tanking or losing or
anything
being
like that.
non-competitive.
I think it's also the very interesting prospect of the quarter, like you said, the quarterback prospect picture, like Caleb Williams, Drake May. These were like the guy. Jane Daniels, C.J.
Hmm.
Stroud, Bryce Young. These were like the guy. I feel like we don't have the guy coming up, really,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Like, I don't follow
Right.
college football that much, so it's like if I don't really know who's in like a solid like chance of being drafted early at this point, it's getting to it's like, all right, there isn't like a guy like before CJ Stroud's rookie season. I knew who he was at this point of like the
Hmm.
regular NFL career, because it was just like, all right, yeah, no, this guy is like a stud. I like him.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like just looking through, I don't really see a quarterback room that it's like, oh man, you're in desperate trouble. That's like
That you can't talk
non.
yourself into running it back one more
I
year.
mean, there's that, but it's also in the terms of non, like non-injury related or like emergency QB situations. Like
Right.
Brock Purdy was hurt for a lot of the season. It's like, but like Brock Purdy's still number one, and even if he wasn't number one, Mac Jones actually held up really good with that team while he was gone.
Right. It is so funny. The all of like the movement last season with like quarterbacks in terms of like, oh, Sam Darnold's moving, Geno
Hmm.
Smith's moving, like, you know, is Matthew Stafford going to go somewhere? Is Aaron Rodgers going to go somewhere? And it really is going to be the Mac Jones sweepstakes because,
I
you know,
think,
this year, which isn't bad. Like again, he showed like
mhm,
when you give him a competent organization, he can be a competent distributor of the
yeah,
football. Um, I forgot the whole drama with his like last year. Do you remember the last year he was with the Patriots? It was who was the guy who was also the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, who was a
Patricia.
Patriots guy? Yeah, it was Matt Patricia as offensive coordinator. Keep in mind he was a defensive coordinator when he was on the Eagles.
Yeah,
Um, to give you a sense of his general vibe.
no,
It got
Patricia
to the
did
point where,
offense.
yeah, did he do? I thought he did defense when he was here.
I he might have started like that, but he was 100% like offensive play calling at the end of the season, and Ben Johnson
Christ.
was like already out.
But yes, and it's just so funny that I forgot the whole thing that Mac Jones called his like coaches from Alabama, and were like, "Can you just go over this film with me? Like, I'm not getting any help here." Um, and that was framed as like, "Oh, he's such a bad team player," and I'm like, maybe it just means the organization kind of sucks. Um,
Yeah,
but
I feel like
yeah, it is a
asking
lot.
for help like that isn't being a bad team player.
Mhm. But yeah, I do think it is interesting because I'm like, I was having an internal, like, I was debating as I was listening to sports radio. I was like, because again, we were, people clowning on the Raiders. I'm like, when I sit down and go, like, what are the organizations where I genuinely wouldn't want to have to run them? Where I'm like, this is such a hopeless situation. I wouldn't even want to try and, like, make something work. And the list is a lot shorter than I thought it would be. Because going through it, I'm like the Dolphins just because they kind of feel like they're in no man's land, despite they could still
Yeah,
have a winning record at the end of the year. I mean, honestly, the Cardinals have talent. The
I
Jets,
would
I'm
be
at least like it's
against.
a blank slate.
Yeah, I feel like it just depends on what your like mentality is. Like I would rather go to the blank slate Jets than the Raiders,
Right? I really am
but
like
also
it might just be the Raiders and the Dolphins.
I would also rather go to. I mean, I would put the Cardinals on that list too. Personally,
I
it's.
guess they have
I
more
feel like
talent than a lost cause, though.
they have more talent than a lost cause, but I feel like they don't have the most clear direction,
That's fair.
and I feel like that gives weird juju vibes.
Mm,
Like we said, Jets blank slate, so like anything could pretty much be an improvement. Then you have like the Dolphins, where it's like you have a lot of right pieces. That's like you have a solid vision. You can make that happen without losing or gaining like losing that much or gaining too much debt to make it happen. It's just like,
hmm
all right, like if we do XYZ, we can get away with it, no problem. Like we got something going for us. But I feel like the Cardinals have XYZ, but they don't have the I can get away with it like
Right. They don't have the one guy
direction.
who's like, when in doubt,
Yeah.
here's our star. Here's our guy who we're gonna lean on. Honestly, even the Dolphins, I'm just like the only reason why I'm stressed I wouldn't want to take them on is because Tua's contract extension hasn't even started yet. Like his big, like I'm a serious
I
NFL quarterback. Whoops, contract that starts
yeah.
next year. They can't unless they're willing to take on a historic amount of,
Dead.
cap hit, yeah, basically debt, to get rid of him. They kind of have to gut it out for one more year with him.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I
At
mean,
least with the Raiders, the contracts,
they're already benching him
you
for
don't have that much
Quinn
dead money.
Ewers. That was announced.
Yes, the former Texas quarterback who everyone was like, why isn't Arch Manning starting over him? And then we saw Arch Manning playing. We're kind of like, oh, what's the SpongeBob meme where Squidward goes off frame and gets electrocuted, and Patrick and SpongeBob are just like, oh.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I do think like this is one of those weeks that does remind you of like, okay, the talent gap in the NFL isn't completely insurmountable.
No.
Like even a team as bad as the Saints, who are currently basically purging, basically have one more year of like purging money,
Yeah.
like truly like you are on a Mardi Gras level binge, and now you're paying for it. They got like one more year of that. Like mostly, I'm just imagining that bit from Spirited Away where No Face is just puking his brains out, running down the stairs.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, all right,
I feel
they're
like
a lot better than a team in that position suggests.
Yeah, I feel like show and like isn't bad enough to be like, we shouldn't like we need somebody new already. It's like, all right, this is a good at least transition quarterback of like we can easily run out his rookie contract, no problem, without having to without being totally screwed, but totally like if we do it, but it's like we don't need to rely on renewing his contract. It's like that, and it's just like they have like a decent level of talent that it's like you are at that good purge point that I don't think they need to worry about drafting people.
Um, Another highlight: the Broncos get a statement win.
Huge
the spirit
win.
of like close games. Again, one of the biggest problems we've had with the Broncos this year is I feel like they haven't had a lot of like
They haven't had the like sexy aggressive win against
like
a good team, a competitive
yes.
team.
They beat the Chiefs, but that was like a particularly close game that could have bounced either way.
And it
That felt like they
also
kind of
it
slipped.
was
Yeah,
this season Chiefs.
yeah, where it's like, okay, now that seems a little more fucked up in hindsight. Like, they played the Raiders alarmingly close. There's just been a frustrating trend of them kind of just playing down to competition and not fully playing up to the competition for a team that's 12-2. This game was kind of everything you wanted to see in terms of they were down for the majority of the game. I believe going into the second half, I'm trying to remember the exact score.
Going into the half, it was 16-14 Green Bay.
Yes, and by halfway through the third quarter, it was 23-14, and it kind of felt like a bit of an insurmountable lead. And then the Denver defense just locked down, end up forcing after that touchdown,
Yeah.
they force interception, punt, field goal, interception, downs. And Bo Nix kind of does just go on a heater.
He locked in. He really just went, "Oh yeah, I got a little something for these guys."
I genuinely think this might be his best performance. For a guy who we've kind of been down. Well, I've been more down on than you. Who I've just said he's fine. He's a game manager, but don't you want a little more from the amount of talent you have? This was probably his best game in terms of one pushing the ball downfield. There were a handful of absolute darts at 20 to 30 yards. He was efficient. I think it might be his first 300-yard game. He threw 4 touchdowns. And again, he was coming into the second half and being down by multiple scores and sort of staying the course in in a game where you are not running the ball really well. I think it was a shockingly competent, mature performance from him, especially because the Packers defense was good. We'll talk about sort of the consequences of this game for the Packers, but I think they genuinely got pressure. I think Micah Parsons might have had pressure before his injury 8 times before he got knocked out with injury. This game demanded a lot of the Broncos offense, particularly of Bo Nix. It demanded a lot of the Broncos defense because while it's not the sexiest stat line, Jordan Love came out slinging fire to start this game. An utterly impressive performance that actually gets me if I was complaining that this team felt like a paper tiger going into the playoffs, now I'm like, okay, this team is a serious, especially this year where it's a anyone can win year. They feel like a serious contender.
Yeah, no, they feel very strong in a good way.
Hmm.
And I think this was also like this was a game between arguably uh, like good placement where it didn't need to be a don't sleep on game, but this was really setting a tone for playoff standards of the Bronco. Both teams needed this huge win
Hmm.
because, like, sure, the Rams and Lions were playing um, for like also playoff potential and stuff, but it was and like same with like Bills and Patriots, but it felt like it was very similar calibers. Like, despite what you've said, I don't believe like the Bills have been on like fraud watch or anything like that this season. Same with like the Lions and Rams. It's
Well,
just
don't tell Ravens fans that. Jesus.
Ravens fans, different story. Um, but like those teams, it's just, like in like those two games, it's like they're just top tier teams versus top tier teams. Someone's got to lose, someone's got to win. I mean, granted, ties
Hmm.
exist, but boo. Um,
Not in the playoffs.
yeah, Bro- Broncos Broncos felt like they're kind of like hovering around being like actually seriously considered despite their record, but it's also like, yeah, we're gonna get a barely win against the Jets. We're gonna win by one against the Giants. We're gonna barely beat the Raiders. It's like, all right, you're kind of not making cases for yourself. And then it's like
Hmm.
this one, it's just like, oh yeah, no, like sure you guys won by one score, but it was like an impressive one score as opposed to like a lopsided like 20 points.
Right.
And
Again, we talked about like the parity in the league. You have to show up and be able to win tight one score games against good teams.
yeah,
Like, I don't, because honestly, it's more impressive than just putting the smack down because sometimes teams don't show up. Like, again, I think about last year's Bills Ravens game where the Ravens just dropped 40 on them and the Bills had nothing. It's
yeah,
like, you have to prove not just that you can beat the good teams, but you can keep it, you can win a game where it's tight. The margins are basically zero. They're not handing you the game.
yeah, you can't. You have to win it when it's like intense. And then you have the
Hmm.
opposite side where like the Packers have had some strong wins, but they've also had some like weird losses over the season. And the
Hmm.
tie against the Cowboys. And let's like also not forget they lost to the Browns in week 3.
Right. Right.
Browns have
Yeah. See,
what, 3 wins overall this season and one of them was to them, and it's just like, all right, like this team has been good enough that it's just like we don't consider them bad, but it's just like that's weird. Little asterisk on that one.
right. This is the frustrating thing about the Packers, especially because the last couple weeks, it's really felt like they. It really feels like the pieces had come together. Parsons has been on a heater the last couple weeks. The offense has been like they've kind of figured out the receiver rotation to really start pushing the ball
Mm-hmm.
downfield. And of course, we saw flashes of that. It just feels like with the two major injuries that come out of this week, the Christian Watson injury that'll probably take him out for the rest of the year, and the Parsons injury that will definitely take him out for the rest of the year. It feels like they are still a competitive team. Again, they have enough talent that they're going to be interesting in the playoffs. But the thought, like the plus level, the sort of blue chip talent they had, just feels diminished now.
Yeah.
Um, I would be remiss if we didn't, and I didn't put this in our notes. We probably should acknowledge the Philip Rivers game. Uh,
It
the
happened.
most emotionally riveting, inspiring, powerful 18-16 stinker we'll ever have in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
It's it's so funny because like,
They exclusively
well,
scored field goals. So, aka field goals win games.
there
But
was exactly one touchdown in this game. It really is kind of, and like my fantasy team has been dependent on the Seattle Seahawks defense scoring 30 points a game, and I do think like the Colts basically played this exactly how you have to play it when you have a 40-year-old kind of chubby guy playing quarterback after he hasn't played in the NFL for 5 years. Of like, we're going to run the ball 30 times. It doesn't matter how little we get. We are going to average 4 yards a throw, and if we lose it, it's because our defense gave up a touchdown. And ultimately, it's the final two. it's the final sequence of this game that really gets me.
Hmm.
The Colts go a grand total. They're down by 1. There's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. Philip Rivers leads a heroic 26-yard drive, a 3-yard run, a 16-yard pass, a 3-yard pass, a 4-yard run. Kicks a 60-yard field goal to take the lead, only for the Seahawks to immediately come back and kick a 56-yarder.
Hmm.
Kind of sums up the game a lot. But at the
Yeah.
same time, for Philip Rivers to come out and not immediately die and at least look okay, that's got to count for something, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like it's one of those games where it's just like he's against a good enough, like a crazy good defense that it's just like, all right, like I'll give it to him for 5 years of rust. Have you seen the whole like conversation of he's just doing this to get his kids back on the NFL insurance plan?
Yeah, which I'd be more,
It's
I mean, the
whatever.
dude endorsed Rick Santorum. It's like, oh, the consequences of your actions, and it's only going to get worse, buddy. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. But
Yeah,
also, as someone who probably doesn't have insurance now, it's less funny. But anyway,
I feel like
yeah,
it's a
a
solid like
fascinating spectacle.
yeah. We're gonna throw this in here,
It is,
but
I don't know. It
I
adds an
don't.
interesting story to this season.
Yeah, it at least the Colts are still going to be in conversation without their quarterback, with their quarterback situation just pretty much destroy, like playoff level destroyed. I
Right.
think we
The
could
idea,
get something cheeky from him, but I think the Colts are even more on the outside looking in at this point, especially with the Jaguars and Texans performances that have been
hmm,
happening.
right. Yeah, it makes them at least like, yeah, well, I wouldn't say functional necessarily, but they're not going to get embarrassed. I feel like that's why you do this move. You're like, if we put in a rookie, he could stink up the joint so bad we'll be embarrassed.
Yeah,
The odds of being embarrassed from this, they're not zero, but it's
but
a, clearly, as this demonstrated, like he'll be competent enough that you won't get humiliated. Like when you decided your new head coach was going to be, oh my God, I'm literally blanking. Their former center, Jeff Saturday.
there
Jesus.
you go.
When they were like, hey, this guy who's never coached before is going to be our head coach, and then gave up a 30-point lead on Thanksgiving or on Black Friday, I believe. No, not Black Friday, but during Thanksgiving week. That's for sure. But I don't know. It's a happy little weird little chapter in the season that I don't mind. Shall we hit our don't sleep on games?
Yeah, I feel like mine is pretty self-explanatory. Bills Patriots fighting for the number one seed in the division. Bills were down. What was the worst they were down? 21 to
21. 21 to
0
0. Big old goose egg.
into like still in the first half, and then a complete turnaround where we didn't even go into overtime for it.
Right. Yeah, this was a fascinating game because rightfully it it was a sobering game to start because all of the shit I say about the Bills all the time was proving to be true. The lack of blue chip talent, the sort of slow degradation of the roster, the sort of timidness. We punted twice in plus territory. The first 2 drives, we were in their on their or on 2 of our first 3 drives, we were on their side of the field and punted. Watching, you know, watching Travion Henderson run for 52 yards really felt like a dagger, and we weren't even into the second half yet. And I don't know. It's
Hmm.
interesting because I feel like a lot of Chiefs homers and a lot of Ravens homers and a lot of Bengals homers in the media are trying to put a pox on the Bills, as it were.
Yeah,
This sort of like, oh, like this is the year. It has to be the year because if none of these other good quarterbacks are in, the best quarterback has to win. Which for me is really the nadir of like football talk of like, wow, I'm so tired of narrowing everything down to whether or not you have a good quarterback. But also like this Bills team is objectively the weakest team we've had in quite a long time.
yeah,
But at the same time, if you have a good running game and you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, you're never mathematically out of it. You can be methodical, You can control the rhythm of the game. And yeah, they're like the minute we got the first we got a touchdown to start the third quarter, I'm like, oh, we're going to win this game. Or at least it's going to be down to one score. You know what's a crazy stat?
Hit me.
The Patriots, I believe, had 17 plays for the entire second half. Do you know how many yards they got? Not including the 60-yard touchdown.
I'm gonna go with 23.
15.
Damn it! I was
The
thinking
only yards
14 at first, but I guessed.
Right. Because one of their drives was negative yards because of a sack. The only real yards they gained were on a 60-yard touchdown run that ruined my fantasy season. And also, it's so funny. It is I would show it to high school kids as like a textbook, like, here's why you don't give up containment. You watch the cornerback sort of like run toward the scrum to sort of like pretend to help tackle. And you realize the running back hasn't gotten caught in the scrum yet. And you're like, oh, he's gonna break this.
Yeah.
But yes, I will say, and honestly, it's my last big takeaway from this game, which kind of technically didn't change anything because the Patriots still have the inside track and will have to lose to either the Dolphins or the Jets to lose the division. And the Bills will have to beat the Eagles, Bears, or Browns, and Jets.
Patriots also have a Ravens game in there too.
Oh, yes. But that one weirdly doesn't affect the division at all because the division's going to come down to tiebreakers, both divisional and conference.
Huh.
I'm not sure how that works, but math. But anyway, my biggest takeaway is, again, I'm so much nicer to Sean McDermott for this season than I have been previous seasons. Because when you look at the absolute lack of again, the mainstream media has picked up on that deranged interview that Brandon Beane, the GM, did, where he was like, all you guys ever do is bitch about wide receiver. Our offense scores 30 points a game, and yet all you want is receivers. I'm fixing everyone forgets that he wasn't just complaining about not getting receivers. He was complaining about fixing the defense. He claimed this was fixing the defense, and now we're down to playing TJ Sanders, a second-round rookie defensive tackle, at defensive end because we don't have enough defensive ends anymore. It's actually kind of an impressive work from Brandon Beane Sean McDermott to make this absolute butt cheeks defense at least vaguely competent for half a game.
Yeah. No, I can agree to that.
Mine was a weird one. Jacksonville at New York. So Jacksonville, it was a beatdown
because
the Jacksonville.
Yeah, no, it was a beatdown, like you said.
Are you going to be mad at me if it's 48-20? But would you be mad at me if I said I'm starting to believe in the Jaguars a little bit?
I wouldn't be mad about that. You're the one that has, I feel like, the bigger I'd rather not believe in the Jaguar energy.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
Texans
just
all the way in that division and probably that conference. So
I mean, I still think the Texans are the team to beat in the AFC South and quietly the team to beat in the AFC. But something about since the Jaguars have traded for Jacoby Myers, there's been a precipitous improvement in the Jaguars offense. It hasn't been the sort of more schizophrenic, like I talked about the Jaguars being schizophrenic where like the high-end talent could show out any other week or look absolutely like butt any other week. But it is just the last couple weeks, the offense has just looked so much more competent, so much more put together, so much more like, they've had more of a full season with Liam Cohen as their coach. And Trevor Lawrence has just quietly put together a string of really good games where he's looked like the guy we were told he was going to be, particularly like between the arm strength, his ability to roll out and make plays on the move, and just his kind of stealthy running ability. Someone pointed out there's one thing he does that I think is better than anyone else in the league is rolling out to his opposite side and being able to just whip it as hard as he can to make a big play.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
I'm quietly impressed at how much more competent they've looked the last few weeks, which is hilarious because again, we were talking about this kind of being a low-key disaster between them looking to trade Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter being out for the entire year. They've somehow put it together, and like if they won a now I'm at least in the place where if they won a playoff game, I wouldn't be shocked.
Excuse me. I can agree that like they seem capable.
Hmm.
Kind of going into what we talked about with Broncos and their game against the Packers. They have
Hmm.
the Broncos this upcoming Sunday, and I think this. I wouldn't say is it's must win in terms of divisional seat, but I don't think it's must win in terms of playoff picture. Um, which depends on how hard you want to go if you're just looking to be in the playoff because they're not going to be the number one seed overall most likely. So theoretically, like it does matter in terms of divisional versus um, wild card seeding, but
Yes.
also it doesn't really matter because they're probably going to be good enough. They get the same like they'll probably get a similarish matchup anyway.
Hmm.
So like it really depends on how you want to look at this, but I think that this is an important game for the Jaguars to like they've had dominant wins against very weird Chargers, the Titans, which means absolutely nothing,
Hmm.
but they haven't like they've won closely against other teams. A lot of like your typical contender teams, but they also have lost like them too. So I think this is they're on a hot streak. I think this is their chance to be like they got to just go out swinging.
Right. It again, I think something that's underrated is like it's really hard for a new coach to come in and like get all especially like these offensive guru coaches who have a lot of
Yeah,
unique systems and ideas. It takes time to implement everything and make it function and move correctly. And frankly, the fact that Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen have kind of come in and by this point in the season things look how they were advertised, I think it's really a testament to how like good last year's head coaching pool was.
yeah. I think
Um,
yeah, I think we're that's another spot we're kind of in a deficit at because of like what's going on and stuff. I don't think we have a good
right.
head coaching pool.
Right. Honestly, I think that's one of the things that the NFL should probably be relieved. There's enough like competitiveness and parity because it's like, well, no one's getting that much. No one's. If the two fastest fixes for a bad team are quarterback and head coach, not a lot of options on that front.
Yeah,
Um, the Raiders are talking themselves into bringing Pete Carroll back because, like, what are the other options? And also, we can't afford to be paying a fourth coach like
yeah,
a third coach to not coach our team and a fourth coach to coach our team unless we like sell a huge chunk of this team to like international like conglomerate or something.
yeah. No, I think it's. I mean, also I feel like Pete Carroll was kind of thrown into somebody else's team, and that's not
Yes.
where he shines. Like he was. I still think he was a right choice for that
I don't
position, but
necessarily disagree with that.
I don't think because like having him as a head coach, great choice in my opinion. But throwing him into that kind of position where
Hmm.
you were like people were already wanting to leave and you were held together with scraps already, and you brought in somebody who would probably like would change like shake things up. I just don't. I
Hmm.
don't think he was like. I don't think he was the wrong choice, but I think like at all. But I think he was kind of thrown into something that wasn't his typical flavoring,
Right.
and
Like he kind of yeah
they
yeah the Seahawks are
they
such a
gave him
different story.
yeah they gave him Gino, where I feel like that's also that's like a weird choice. I feel like that was the bigger detriment to their season than bringing in Pete Carroll because he knew what like Gino could do, and relying on Gino behind a very weak offensive line with Brock Bowers basically as his main option
Hmm.
isn't conducive to somebody that was like running with JSN and like Lockett for like the last season.
Right. Yeah, I I guess I agree with that. It is funny, like it is so funny. It's like we're like, yeah, look at all these great head coaching hires, and then you look at the Raider. It literally everything about the Raiders, the trades they made, the early draft picks they made, like it felt like they were doing all the right stuff, and then you just look at it and you're like, oh,
If it feels like they're a 5 years out team on a 4 year team,
right. You're
where
5 years out, but you've been doing this for 5 years.
yeah,
You're telling me there's another 5 years?
kind of like how all colleges is like, oh yeah, this is a 5 year plan, so they don't have to keep on any of the promises they make to the freshman class.
Oh, yes. No, I have firsthand experience with that because I was going to go to Bard on basically my first year at Bard was going to be a part of like a 5 year pro effort to reignite the athletic department. And then they reneged all that money and the coach quit and I would have been fucked.
Yeah,
I would have lost my scholarship. So it all kind of worked out.
yeah,
Um,
but it's
but
it feels like that with that team where they're at least talented enough they can kind of pick and choose their deals in terms of we're already at the bottom of the barrel, but like, is Gino really worse than this quarterback room? Is
hmm,
is Kenny Pickett like? Is he really that much worse that we need to draft somebody, or can we focus on fixing some other spots more importantly first, and then when these contracts more naturally run up, we just don't renew them and call it a day.
right.
Because
Yeah, it's
I
God, that's
I feel like
I,
that's I feel like that's the argument. I'm very much not sold on like the rookie quarterback or like the upcoming quarterback like picture, but like I think a lot of the QB2s can make something happen with other teams that they I think there's going to be a big backup shakeup this offseason as of right now for certain teams, but a lot of teams are going to just stay very quietly away from that. Include
yeah.
like I mean obviously you have your juggernauts like Josh Allen, you have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, even like Trevor Lawrence, where it's just like, yeah, people are going to stay away from that. But then you have like these weird rooms of like, what are the Cardinals going to do? Are they going to stick with Brissett? Or are they going to go to Kyler? Or are they going to just like pick somebody's backup off? Or are they going to have Wentz like next year?
Oh, that's I want to see Wentz get a starting chance. But see, what you're saying is kind of what I'm getting at with like why I picked this game because it's the first time I felt like the Jaguars aren't on that carousel.
Yeah.
It's the first time because even early in the year, I'm like, well, maybe Liam Cohen decides to move off of
There
Trevor,
was weird
or it's
tensions
like a
between
2 year
him and
right.
Trevor at the beginning of the season. Yeah.
The vibes between him and Trevor were weird. The vibes with Brian Thomas Jr. were weird. The Travis Hunter thing wasn't quite working out. Like he was good on both sides, but they weren't playing him enough to justify it. Travis Etienne looked, it was like another year where it's like, oh, this is disappointing. Like nothing felt like it was working right. And now it all just is. And you're like, oh, maybe they are off the carousel. Maybe they are finally on the, like, you got the quarterback, you got the coach. Now you just get to kind of be a good team.
Yeah, no,
And,
I think they're I don't want to say they're off the carousel until this upcoming game for the Jaguars.
right.
They
Yeah.
It
I guess
doesn't need to be a
ultimately,
win,
yeah.
it just needs to be a good showing. That's it.
Right. Well, I'll do you one better. I will say, ultimately, I think the biggest test for that is like you have to get a playoff win.
Yeah,
Like again, we
I
keep
can
talking
agree.
about like the Chargers being impressive and doing this and doing that. It's like, yeah,
But
but
they
you still
don't
haven't
win
won
the
a playoff
playoffs.
game. Right.
Yeah,
The Jaguars had a playoff win, but that was with a different coaching regime.
I think a playoff win would also be a very good showing from them as well.
Hmm.
Um if it's an upset even better, but I think their more important game is to show up against the Broncos to be like, okay, you're a legitimate contender in the playoff picture, as opposed to being like kind of wild carding your way into the playoff picture and just being like, ta-da.
Hmm. Um, shall we move on to the lowlights?
Yeah, let's get
Tampa
sad.
Bay. rightfully crashes out. Yeah, I don't.
All right,
So
like
the Atlanta Falcons beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 29-28. A pretty a fascinating game where the Buccaneers had a 10-point lead at one point, a
14.
14-point
Yeah.
lead going into the fourth quarter, and it really felt like all they had to do was hold on to the ball for like basically the last 3 minutes. All they had to
Yeah.
do was run out
They
the
had
clock.
to not like no interceptions, nothing stupid, just clock play the clock game.
Yeah. Like the last 6 minutes of this game, they have two drives where they could end this game. They throw an interception, they give up a touchdown, and they have to punt the ball away. The Falcons go 45 yards to kick the game-winning field goal, and Todd Bowles, the longtime head coach of the Tampa Bay
Hmm.
Buccaneers, ends up going on a swear-filled tirade. I don't know how else to
It
describe it.
was yeah, I wasn't even talking about that aspect of it. I was talking about how it's the final drive, the game sealing drive for the Falcons, and you have like Mike Evans and other like notable players walking off before the game is over.
Oh yeah, I
Like
forgot about that.
that was the part that I was bringing up when I wrote this note of just like yeah, like they worked hard. They did great putting up 28 points, but then they're just watching this defense just poop the game away.
Right.
And
Well,
I
even that, it's just fascinating where it's like, it's so weird how watching the game, you are like, oh, they're gonna give the ball back and they're gonna lose. There was no
yeah,
point when I felt comfortable. I'm like, a team this talented should easily be able to move the ball downfield and end the game. And you're like, nah, that's just not how the season's gonna go.
yeah, I think I think that is one I think that's just one of those things where it's just like I'm all for like respecting the like opposing side talent and the talent like on the other side of the ball for your team. Like paying respect to like the those who tried incredibly hard versus also like the like just longevity talent of like all right, I gotta at least respect Kirk Cousins for like balling out at the end.
Hmm.
Um, but also I kind of think that those who walked off before the game was formally done, I think they're in the right.
It, it is
I
so, it is such a bummer, right?
it's a
It,
huge bummer, but I just think they're in the right. I think that's like you put up 28 points. You had a like we said like a 14-point lead in the beginning of the fourth quarter. So not even like right as it changed. It was a couple of minutes in, and it's like, okay, we're gonna need you guys just to hold them for one drive and let us like we're not gonna be we're gonna fuck it up by throwing an interception, but we still have a hefty lead. Just get in their way, and then they don't.
yeah, yeah. What's funny is I think both the offense and the defense can be mad at each other because it's like defense. The Falcons' offense has been inconsistent and sputtering for 90% of the season, and now they're suddenly the best offense in the league without their best wide receiver, mind you.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's funny because the rant took away from the fact that this was the Kyle Pitts legacy game.
Oh,
Uh,
just insane.
yeah, that feels like a sub story in all of this somehow. Between giving up a big lead and the Buccaneers now being on the knife's edge of the playoffs, and also of all of these things. Okay, so Kyle Pitts basically has the game of his life: 11 catches, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns, basically carrying the offense. Here's the craziest stat from all of this. Do you want to guess? So he scored 3 touchdowns. Do you want to guess how many touchdowns Kyle Pitts has scored in his entire career?
A shamefully low number. I'm gonna go with like 14.
You you looked it up.
I did
No
not.
way.
No.
He has scored 14. So let's just, for sake of rounding and averages, let's say we round it up to 15. 20% of his touchdowns were
We're
scored in
scored in
that
that
game.
game. Yeah.
That is how insane that is as an idea against a competent offense that's or defense that still has multiple Super Bowl championship players. Like the core of the championship defense is still there, and they gave that up. I do want to read a little bit of this tirade from Todd Bowles. It's inexcusable. We don't make excuses. You gotta fucking care enough where this shit hurts. You've got to fucking care enough where this shit hurts. It's got to fucking mean something to you. It's more than a job, it's your fucking livelihood. Fair? How well do you know your job? How well can you do your job? You can't sugarcoat that shit. It was fucking inexcusable and there's no fucking answer for it. No excuse for it. That's what you tell them in the locker room. Look in the fucking mirror. The coaches have done all they can.
Ooh,
And
don't like that.
yeah, I don't, you can't say that as a coach. You really can't. Like, I know deep down you can feel it. Deep
Yeah.
down it might not be untrue, but you can't say it. It does, it's so sad because there was a moment where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers felt like they were at the table, like they were at the
Oh,
nice
they were.
VIP table, the Super Bowl contenders team.
Yeah, they were behind the velvet rope at the bar.
Even with all the injuries, it felt like they were getting through them as best they could and still like putting up serious discussion, like proving that they could gut it out and tough it out until everyone got back. And now between your starting quarterback being injured, the injuries piling up, it just feels like they kind of lost the plot, and it's a bummer. Where I'm
Yeah.
like, I do think they're gonna have to have some unpleasant conversations about like, is it time? Do you write this season off, or do you hear that rant and say that the locker room and the coaching staff are not seeing eye to eye, and maybe it is time to make a few changes?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be like based off of like that rant and stuff. It is going to be a more of a coaching regime change than a player regime change. Baker still like had a very good season, but he's been playing like pretty hurt.
Hmm.
It doesn't help that like Mike Evans has been gone for the majority of the season, and he showed back up at this game. He came back in
Hmm.
and was like, "All right, I remember how to do this." You have Chris Godwin who's been in and out, but you also have Mbuka who's like, "I'm showing up." You have Bucky who's been out. Like
Right,
the team's pretty hurt, and you can't really give them the entire blame for this like shit show. Um,
right,
and I think that the first 2/3 of that rant, where it's just like talking about livelihood and stuff, that is a locker room conversation. That is not a press
public conversation.
conversation. That is a get the media out. Like, hey, assistant coaches, trainers, whoever, like block the doors. This is
Hmm.
this is like an us conversation, and the whole like the coaching staff is give it all it's worth is one of those like you do not want to hear that like if I was a player I would not want to hear that conversation at a press conference. Like
Right,
I think that is the in my opinion that is the nail in the coffin for morale. Like
right,
the lack of accountability on both like on that side where it's just like if he just said this wasn't a good week for the team, not emphasizing what part of the ball, not emphasizing coaches versus non like coaches, just saying the team, I would be like, all right, that's fair, but to emphasize like to have no accountability for it, and it's also not their like yeah, coaches can only do so much because they can't really get on the field, but also you can't just throw your players underneath because that will absolutely kill vibes.
right.
I think there's two logical options in my head of there needs to be a closed door meeting between either the entire team and if not the entire team, just the captains and the like main coordinators and bowls, and they need
Hmm.
to either hash it out and end on like somewhat decent vibes, or I think Bowles needs to go after that crash out.
Right. It's like, again, it's okay to lose. A
Yeah.
lot of owners, a lot of managerial groups can live with losing. You can't embarrass
If
yourself. And
yeah,
that's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, it's not like the loss was a little embarrassing, but the reaction was more embarrassing than the loss. And
Agreed.
if you can't, it is literally the fissure that is causing that would cause a divide in a locker room, in my opinion, of just outright calling out the other side, regardless if it's coaching or player side. Um, and if you do not settle that behind closed doors, with like no cameras, because that will be like that's the only way it's a genuine looking for a change situation.
Right.
One of those sides has to pretty much be thrown out, and it's not going to be the sides that actually won the majority of those games.
Right. And it's like, frankly, it's like, and frankly, it's like, okay, maybe everyone takes a deep breath, says it was a tough year with all the injuries, and we all move on and are better for it, and we stay the course. But if it is time to move off from Bowles, that's not the end of the world. You know, he's been a good coach. You know, you won the Super Bowl, you've stayed competent. Like, it's not the end of the world. But
Yeah,
like, yeah, it does feel like the tone of this season is officially
that
changed.
yeah, like we were
Even if
talking
you
about
make
with
the
the
playoffs,
Jaguars, where they
it feels
started off
changed.
weird, but now they're really hitting their stride as a class.
This is the exact
This is the
opposite.
opposite, where you started off hot, and then it's just like, sure, like a couple of cheeky losses, but also you are playing with like half a team for like this entire season.
Hmm.
So like doing as good as you did and losing the ones you did, I would feel like there's only the Saints one is a little unexcusable,
Yeah.
but it's not like they got blown out by the Saints.
Right.
It's just, yeah, no, this is one of your, like I said, this is the vibe killer on this team. I think we're gonna see a very different Buccaneers versus these two Panther games.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of lined up perfectly where, you know, it's two games against the Panthers to decide the division basically and kind of the direction this franchise is going to be going in.
yeah, and I think the Panther like when it comes to vibes, especially after that speech, I think the Panthers
Hmm.
are coming in a lot happier because they
Hmm.
were expecting themselves to lose pretty much. That if people on the Buccaneers are going to like subtly give up, it's going to be against this game.
Right. Um, the tale of two ACLs, two kind of major ACL injuries, have kind of changed the course of this season.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about the Micah Parsons one. Quietly, he had been having a very, very good season,
Yeah,
12 and a half sacks. It'll be,
I
again,
think
it's sad because this Packers team is still good, but it's like the whole
yeah.
argument of like one great pass rusher elevates everyone else. That felt like it changed halfway through that
I
game.
was
It
gonna
felt like the weaknesses were starting to show again.
Yeah, I think the way I can describe that his impact is less of like he's not like the star of the defense, but he's so damn good that he is throwing wrenches into the other teams that they have to
Right.
compensate extra for him, leaving weaknesses for other defensive line members.
Right. There was a brief period where it felt like he was having the back injuries, and it felt like, you know, it might have been a bit of a hasty decision by the Packers. But genuinely, like the last month and a half, like in terms of pressure rate, in terms of sack rate,
He's
like
been silently very good.
silent killer. And it really does feel like, while this team, the floor of this team is still very, very good. You have a good quarterback and a good head coach. It feels like the ceiling of like, this is one of the teams to beat has been taken away. And the other team, kind of the biggest story of this week is the Kansas City Chiefs have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. A very nasty, tight game, 13-16. The Chiefs were driving downfield, basically a last gasp to take the lead and, you know, try to win the game. Uh, I believe it was on a I believe it was on a. I think the most fitting part is I believe they called holding on the play. Patrick Mahomes sort of dives, his leg gets pulled, and he tears a ACL and maybe one other ligament. Gardner Minshew has to come in, try and march the team downfield, and ends up throwing an interception to end the game, eliminating the Kansas City Chiefs from the playoffs because all of the other tiebreaker, all of the other sort of win in your in or like all of the other scenarios that needed to happen to mathematically eliminate them
Yeah.
happened. It's sort of, I still kind of don't believe it. I really am like, I really thought they were just going to end up squeaking into the playoffs. I thought they were going to take advantage of how hurt the Chargers were. But I do think the injury puts it in an interesting, like a different perspective.
Mm.
Because I think, again, the sort of people who, in terms of like the GOAT conversation or the Brady versus Mahomes conversation, the argument was that Tom Brady never missed, like, he would have never missed the playoffs like this. But the ACL injury kind of inoculates that because you're like, well, what if he was still in the game?
Yeah.
Well, Gardner Minshew threw the interception. Patrick
I
Mahomes
think,
didn't.
yeah, it's that argument of just like because of the injury, you can't technically rule this out as a Mahomes loss.
Hmm.
And I mean, like the commentary community and the NFL offices love a good Mahomes wins it at the last second storyline.
Right. Politely, why were you throwing the ball with Gardner Minshew that why are you not just
That
playing for the field goal at that point?
that seems a little silly in my opinion on their part of just like why you just had to get in field goal range and they were hovering around it too.
Right.
Excuse
They
me.
could have easily made that field goal, gone to overtime, and hoped for the best.
Yeah. It wasn't like one of those games where it's just like, oh, we are starting at our two. It's like, okay, you're like, you need like a solid run game, and you have solid running backs that it's just like getting us the yardage. Probably easier than we think it is. But
Mhm.
not like I'm. It's disappointing it ended this way because you don't want to see like a game ending, like not even a game ending, a season ending injury like be the main factor for a team's like loss and stuff like it is in this situation because like yeah Minshew did throw the interception and stuff but also like that wouldn't happen if Mahomes didn't hurt himself like we said, so it's like
Right.
technically it is a factor but it's like nah, I wanted the Chiefs to be ruled out of the playoffs with like Patrick Mahomes swinging to the last second like
Right. That's what it is. It really is just the narrative element of it, where it's
yeah.
not nearly like
It's a little bit of
it's
a
not fun to
bummer.
celebrate the defeat
Yeah.
of the Chiefs because
If
it's
they're
like, well,
gonna, if that happens, yeah.
right, because they didn't go out swinging. They went out with fucking Gardner Minshew. Like on top of the fact that it's like, yeah, this also puts their, you don't want to see people get injured, no matter how annoying they
Yeah.
are, no matter how like tedious they've made the NFL discourse. Like, it doesn't feel like a victory. Again, it's the same thing with like. It's weird how similar it is in terms of like the timeline of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes'
Oh, yeah.
injuries. And it is so striking that it's like, it was also annoying in 2009 when the Patriots were coming back off the failed undefeated season. He gets injured first game of the season. And then it's like, oh, the entire, it doesn't feel like a victory for them to miss the playoffs then. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a victory for everyone to compete for the Super Bowl when
With,
like
when
the
he's,
obvious number one choice was gone.
yeah. And I think based off of schedules and stuff like that, they still wouldn't have made it in.
They would have
But,
had to beat Denver in a pretty high stakes game.
yeah. But it's also like, we'll never know now.
Yeah.
And,
And that's what stinks.
yeah. It's just like, if that happened this week and then they, like, or if they got eliminated this week and then he tore his ACL last week, no, like next week, it's like, all right, they were still eliminated. It would feel good, but
Mhm.
also it's like, and then it's also like why are they still playing him if they're already out?
Right.
When like this shit happens, but I think
Ay,
it's
vey.
yeah no it still feels good that we're gonna have pretty much brand new representation for half the playoff picture of the AFC, where it's not that weird guarantee of, okay, the Chiefs and whoever beats everybody else is going to be the conference guys. It's like, okay, we're going to get like true new representation from the AFC pretty much.
Right. I do want to, looking back at the AFC title games, because because it's so interesting. We went from this like second phase of Tom Brady, like the 2018 to 2020
Hmm.
range, where he basically reinvented himself to like continue his career. And honestly, that's ultimately what the GOAT conversation is going to
That
come down
was,
to
yeah.
for because like Tom Brady had an entire second act that I'm like, I don't know if any of these guys, I don't know if Josh Allen's going to have that. I really don't think Lamar's going to have that. Like,
His
this is the
second act
first,
really submitted him as like the guy. As much as I don't like
right,
him, for, like that really just put him in like it's like, ah, damn it, you are in a league of your own, aren't you?
right. The last time the New England Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs weren't in the AFC title game was 2011.
Crazy.
The original Avengers hadn't come out yet.
Yeah,
That's God. What a
that's
literally
insane.
15 years. We're going to celebrate the 15th year of these two dynasties going back to back without him. And honestly, for me, the biggest takeaway from this is just I am so curious how the NFL is going to react, not just from like a punditry standpoint, but again, I keep thinking about that Tom Brady injury. He's playing the Chiefs. Someone goes low on his knee. He buckles. He's out for the season. Patriots put up a fight but missed the playoffs. That fundamentally changed the rules in terms of how you're allowed to hit a quarterback and basically created this era of like
Soft core.
superstar offenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was that like spark plug that created this era of like the Drew Brees, Peyton Manning becoming a 55, shattering his own records.
Yeah.
Like all of these, Derek Carr having the most misleading stat lines any quarterback is ever going to have ever. It's going to be so fun telling those whippersnappers. Actually, he kind of sucked. Um,
Yeah. Wasn't that
I'm
great?
so curious. Yeah, he was actually pretty bad. I'm so curious how this one is going to like not just that one, but the Chiefs missing the playoffs and fundamentally like I just keep thinking about that Christmas game now and how that game is meaningless. Like it's just going to change a lot. I think the NFL is going to again, I think the low-hanging fruit is salary cap rules.
Yeah.
They're going to change.
It's
But
yeah. No,
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting. Uh,
it's a legacy changer, that's for sure. Panthers lose on a pounce. In terms of like individual lowlights, I feel like we do broader highlights and lowlights these days as opposed to focusing on individual plays. But I wanted to bring up one very frustrating game. In classic Panthers fashion, the Hive showed up and they played kind of bad against the New Orleans Saints.
who
17-17.
very quietly has like been beating their division. Panthers went
Yes,
0 and
they have
2.
That's actually, I genuinely can't believe that. But Saints are pinned down at their 9. It kind of feels like it is going to go to overtime. They're kind of midfield. They're not really making progress to getting in field goal range. Tyler Show runs up the middle, ends up sliding and getting hit by a linebacker for the
Yeah.
Panthers, Ransom, getting a 15-yard unnecessary roughness. They literally don't have to run another play, kick the field goal, win the game.
Yep.
A a frustrating little moment. It really is like the margins of these middle. Again, we talk about like the margins of all these games, the margins of all these teams, and it really is just like one little careless slip up
And
keeps the division alive for the Buccaneers.
yeah. Also, sorry for going back to it, but also the Falcons got 19 penalties
What? Like in their favor or against them?
against them.
That's
Tampa
stupid.
19 penalties for 125 yards. Tampa Bay got 4 for 25 yards. Just throwing that out there. Sorry, I forgot about. I meant
They
to bring that
literally
up a
handed you
second
an
ago.
entire football field worth of yards and you couldn't win the game.
Yeah, I had it open on another tab, and I forgot to switch to it during the thing. But anyway,
That's
yeah,
ridiculous.
Panthers kind of blowing it. It feels very Panthersy,
Right.
but I don't think I'm worried. I'm worried, but I'm not worried for them.
I Again, I think
It's
my expectations for this team are just skewed by the fact that I know deep down they're probably just an okay team, not a great
I
team.
think it's
And
skewed
like,
because Saints are so bad, Giants are so bad. Like there's so many like worse teams out there now, and they've had a couple of like cheeky wins, and they're doing better than expected from like this generation of Panthers.
mhm.
That we put them on a higher pedestal, but I think you're right. They are like an okay team.
Right. We're putting them in a higher pedestal because they've beaten our expectations. But like, we have to remind her again, in rushing to celebrate, in our rush to celebrate like a team sort of punching above their weight class, is reminding ourselves like, right, they're punching above our weight class. Again, Rocky got patted on the back for beating
Hmm.
Apollo Creed, but then he gets the crap kicked out of him by Clubber Lang, and we're like, oh right,
Yeah,
he's just okay fighting.
yeah, and I think
Bit of a tortured
like
metaphor, but you get it.
there's been a couple of like humbling games through this season for them. 42-13 loss to the Patriots, which I mean we weren't expecting that level of Patriots at that time either. So it's just like
Hmm.
whoa. A 40-9 loss against the Bills was thrown throughout there, but like they've also had some cheeky wins against like the Packers and the Rams one especially. That was huge. So I think these they have the Buccaneers twice, which are going to be super important. But I think the Seahawks game in between is going to be like the real game where it's just like, are you going to be proven just absolutely humbled and join the Goose Egg Club, or are you going to be like, okay, you stood a chance at least,
Hmm.
and it's like you should be in the playoff picture club. I think that's
Right.
going to be like the real down to earth moment for that team, for like the fans that are like paying attention from outside of the market.
Right. Um, otherwise, the Goose Egg Watch.
Yes,
I like that we've added this as a little thing.
it's always what I refer to it as, and it was only like a couple of weeks ago when I was just like, I should just outright call it the Goose Egg Club. Yeah, we got two new member or one new member guaranteed, and another I don't remember, but it is two teams this week. Las Vegas Raiders, as we've talked about a bunch, scoring a big old goose egg against the Eagles, and the Cincinnati Bengals surprisingly scoring a goose egg against the Ravens.
Yeah,
That
a
was
weirdly
weird.
disappointing game. Usually, because they usually punch again. The AFC team, the AFC North is like the AFC South in terms of like with more pedigree of like all the teams usually compete well against each other. But it truly was like a non-competitive game. I just keep seeing that highlight of linebacker gets an interception, realizes there's not a chance in hell he's going to be able to return it for a touchdown, so he just hands it off to someone else, who proceeds to run it
Mhm.
the rest of the way, which is a fun highlight, but a real bummer for this Cincinnati season.
Yeah, it is the second showing for the Raiders this season.
Yes. Which, you know what's striking? Um, apparently, this is the first time a team has been shut out twice in like over a decade.
Nope.
Apparently, this is a much less common thing than I thought.
No, it's it's not been a decade. It's been like 2 years.
What? I thought it was a decade.
Nope.
Well, I got bad
Carolina
intel.
Carolina Panthers, December 31st, 2023, 0-26 loss to Jacksonville. January 7th, the following week, 2024, a 0-9 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh.
It's been like
Well,
two seasons.
I hate to say it, I was given very bad intel on this. But yes, it is a lot less common than I thought for a team to get shut out multiple times in a season,
it
which I
Yeah,
guess makes sense because it's like, God, surely the other team's punter just shanks it, you get 10 yards and kick a field goal.
yeah.
Like, is it really that hard to do that once?
I think that's the crazy part is you get so outclassed that you can't even score like a field goal at some point, which devastating from the Bengals offense
Right.
because they're
An
incredibly good.
offense that has actually been good this year.
Yeah, excuse me. But super weird that they got nothing from like. It's not surprising that they got nothing from for their defense
The
against the Ravens.
defense.
But it's weird
They
that
just
the
gave up like
offense
37 to the Bills.
couldn't get into field goal range, or
Mhm.
if they did, they blew it somehow. That's weird.
Yeah, it is striking. It's especially shocking in today's NFL where like the ball almost always starts at the 35 and guys can kick 60-yard field goals.
Yeah,
Like I think that the biggest takeaway from the Seahawks Colts game is that like okay, maybe the field position thing is a problem because like these two teams did not deserve to kick back-to-back field goals to
no,
decide this game. They barely had to move the ball.
yeah,
Um,
it's it's weird how like easy that was. So I think that makes it more weird if you get 0.
right. Um, but yes. Shall we go on to notable notes?
I'm down for it. We got some clinches.
Beep, 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 beep,
We got
beep.
one from each conference. The Denver Broncos beating the Green Bay Packers. Welcome to the playoffs. The Los
Yes,
Angeles Rams beating the Detroit Lions. Welcome to the playoffs.
two teams returning to the playoffs, which I would argue with what I would argue is much higher expectations. Both teams went from feel good, like kind of feel good, building something teams last year, and both of them kind of feel like Super Bowl contenders this year.
Yeah, no, it's great showings. I'm not mad about either team being in. Like, there's a team that like squeaks in and stuff, and
Mhm.
you're just like, ugh, why are you here? Like last year's Chiefs, where they're just winning these one score games, and it's because of like, oh, they blocked a field goal for the first time all season. Oh, the kicker hit the post, like his like first hitting the post and not just outright making it or missing it all season, and the Chiefs win like that. Like that was like last year where it was just like, ugh, I feel like you don't. I feel like you've gotten lucky too many times to deserve to be here.
Mhm.
This year, different story. I feel like both teams very much have earned this spot. Um, exciting. Um, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this for them. So Broncos have a 2-game lead against the Chargers, and they're guaranteed the playoffs. They're still technically fighting for number one. Do you think they should rest anybody this upcoming game, or do you think they should play hard?
I think because both of them are in such tight runs for the first seed, I think you got to play it out. I
Okay.
think both teams, especially because it's like, I don't know, they both had good injury luck, particularly for the younger Broncos. I think they just need the game reps, like serious high intensity play out. Like they're not going to get tired. They could
Yeah.
benefit from like the scar tissue that like playing important games over and over again does. The Rams I could at least get talked into a little bit because they have had injury troubles this year and like, you know, they've been here before.
Yeah.
But like I do think both teams could try like I do think this Thursday night game that's coming up between the Seahawks and the Rams will decide a lot for
The division and playoff
yeah,
picture.
yeah, for how intense the Rams take the rest of the way.
Yeah. All right, I can support those.
Um yes. Meanwhile, we got a quadtuple of eliminations. A lot of teams we talked about today. The Cincinnati Bengals end up getting eliminated after a difficult game against the Ravens. The Miami Dolphins have a truly one of the sadder games of the play of the week, losing to the Steelers by multiple scores.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was
the
kind
worst
of
part is
devastating.
yeah, they kind of did it to themselves again in terms of like, and I can't believe this is probably going to be the game that guarantees the Steelers have a winning record. But like, they kind of did it to themselves. They showed this hype video where they're like practicing out in the snow, going through game script, and it's like, yeah, and then you get bullied off the turf yet again. Um,
Um, so a little bit about the Dolphins. We kind of mentioned it earlier. Tua is no longer QB1. that is now belonging to Quinn Ewer.
Is it your or
I
yours?
don't know. Um, and QB2 position for them this upcoming week goes to, obviously, Zach Wilson.
Oh
Tua
my
is
God, that's where he ended
form
up.
Yeah, apparently. And Tua's formally, like, I just got the notification while recording. Tua's technically, as of right now, formally listed as QB3 for the Dolphins.
Well, say what you want about Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't have the arm strength to whip the ball downfield like a lot of the great quarterbacks in this league. He's not particularly fast on the scramble. He says weird things in interviews and seems to actively annoy his teammates. He's deceptively inaccurate when it's not in system. He had that really fucking weird quote about being like, well, the next international game I want to play is in Israel. And everyone was like, what the, what?
That's
Um,
weird.
yeah, I feel like it got glossed over because this has been a chaotic, it's one of those things that you forget unless someone brings it up for an NFL season, but it's like, that's going to be one of those ones that you remember and go, ha, that was weird. Um, he's an injury prone to the point that it's actually kind of scary to see him out on the field. But anyway, it is kind of sad because you go back and watch the highlights, and before the hip injury, you're like, I absolutely understand why teams are actively tanking to get this guy. You know, he
Yeah.
had much better arm strength before the hip injury. He was way more mobile before then. Like, he looked like a guy who could be like the next Drew Brees. And then he had one of the worst injuries anyone's ever had in the college history. And then he had one of the worst injuries anyone's ever had in NFL history. And yeah, that's kind of where his story is probably ending up.
Yeah. His brains got scrambled multiple
He has
times.
an old man hip.
Old man hip.
Um,
Yeah.
Weird stat by the Steelers, though, to focus on the team that actually won for a minute. Uh, they have not lost a they haven't lost a at home Monday Night Football game over two coaching regimes. Bill Cowher was 11-0, I believe, and Mike Tomlin was 12-0.
That's
Keep in
crazy.
mind, the Steelers have only had three coaches in their entire history, so only one of them has lost a
Monday
like
night game.
yes, um, yes. Since the merger, we should qualify. Like in like their major history, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. Chuck Noll, I believe, only lost like one. Uh, Truly incredible stat. Kansas City has also been eliminated, as we discussed, and Minnesota, despite having a kind of impressive showing this week, they are going to have an interesting offseason where they kind of have to figure out what they're going to do about nine. I
I
will say
think,
the last few weeks of Sam Darnold has probably made them feel a little better.
yeah, the last few weeks of Sam Darnold's made him feel better. Also, I feel like nine just can show up, but like his season where like he should have been sitting like having like a full time like quality quarterback like Darnold as his backup, kind of helping him out. Kind of got flopped around with his injuries and then Wentz's injuries and stuff like that, where it's been a
Hmm.
little like inconsistent in like a mentor department because I feel like that's what this kid needs more than anything else. So like them dropping Wentz and picking up somebody that has like a level of like longevity, but also like should just be in a backup role, like for example Russell Wilson, I feel like would be
Hmm.
the best option for this kid's career.
Right. And I don't know. I've been gentler to the Vikings because you can't play the results. The last time they saw Sam Darnold, he had a really rough game against the Lions
Yeah.
and ended up like bumping the team into the wild card spot. And then he had a truly horrific playoff game where the Rams sacked him 8 times and he had two turnovers. And it's like, yeah, if those games went differently, you probably talk yourself into running it back one more year. But those games did happen,
No.
so you
Yeah.
went
He
with your gut, and it kind of blew up in your face.
he was rightfully dropped from the starting gig, but I think he would have been a good backup, but he did good enough that season that he didn't need to Like he didn't need
Right.
to take backup money. He could have took
Exactly.
starter money.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what their plan is because they could just say, "Hey, one more season, let's just go for it with 9, and if it's bad, we'll have an inside track on this next round of quarterbacks." But it's more just like how do you sell a very good offense and a pretty good defense on like next year's going to be another experiment?
yeah,
A tough gamble, basically, that could decide a lot of things. Because what happens if Justin Jefferson decides to stop being so nice?
I'm telling you, I said it last year. This guy is one of those guys who's good enough that he can just text, he could tweet out, "Hey, looking to go on vacation. Any suggestions?" And someone will be like, "Green Bay," and he'll be like, "I don't know." Or he'll
Right?
be
He'll do
like,
the
someone will be like Tampa Bay, and because apparently he's only going to Bay cities, um,
he likes the water.
and he'll just kind of give like eyes as a reaction to that
Right.
comment, where he doesn't
He'll
outright say
strategically
it.
post a image from a game with like the Bills logo in the background or something.
Yeah,
Like Jalen Waddle did that, and then it turns out they actually did try to trade for Jalen Waddle, and then they just didn't want to pony up another draft pick. Um, but yes, I really think like this offseason for the Vikings is they're going to have one of the more interesting off seasons in terms
yeah.
of like this thing could completely collapse in on itself, or they can stabilize the entire thing and be a good team again, like
I
they
th-
were 2 years ago.
I think
The
it's
talent's there.
I think it's an argument of Jefferson and Addison. I think that's going to be your tellingness of it all. If they're both locked in for it, absolutely they have the potential to be dominant. But if they're both kind of like, I don't know, that's gonna put everything for them into question.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of questions, question of the week. If there
Yes.
was one move you could rewind from this offseason slash trade deadline, what would it be? Now, when you say rewind, is it just make the deal not happen or make the deal happen to someone else?
I would just say make the deal not happen. Like a
Okay.
team made a decision, like traded for someone, signed someone, hired someone, realize and be like, whoops, we shouldn't have done that. Beep, undo.
My homer pick is Slay to the Steelers because
Mm,
that like the spot he filled on the field was 100% just like getting that was the spot that most teams, especially the ones that we lost to, targeted the most.
right.
I think that was that spot, but let me think of a non-homer pick while you say what you had.
Mine is actually one we just discussed. Pete Carroll going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it was just I I do believe that Pete Carroll could probably still be a pretty decent coach in the NFL under the right circumstances. I do agree with you that I think it was just the exact worst place because
Yeah,
it was the exact wrong combination of too much stuff is already there, but not enough stuff is there. That
and it was
an
made to
underrated
not his style.
Right. Like he tried to make it to his style. Like him getting Ashton Genty is basically the equivalent
That's
of when
Pete
he
Carroll
came to
style.
the Seahawks and said, "Get me Marshawn Lynch. Figure out how to get like I really think he'd be good on this team. The Bills don't seem 100% committed to him. Like whatever trade you have to get done to get him." Um Meanwhile, like it's underrated that he brought both of his sons onto the offensive coaching staff. And I do think that's an example of like an organization that is not serious
Serious.
enough. Weirdly, it reminds me of the Carolina Tar Heels being so like excited at the idea of having Bill Belichick. Uh, they don't they don't see the red flags of like, oh, he's bringing his girlfriend who's like micromanaging his entire life. Oh, he's bringing that weird hanger on from the from the Patriots who was kind of a GM but not really a GM. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like you kind of needed an organization that was like I'm trying to even think of like what a better fit would have been.
For
Like
Pete Carroll, um, that was
honestly, maybe
looking
the
for.
Patriots.
I would say that was looking for like some sort of coach before the season, I think Patriots would have been a good choice, but I think Vrabel was a better choice.
Was the obvious choice, yeah.
Yeah, I think he could have gotten away with a better record on the Giants. I
The
think
Giants would have been a good fit. The Jets arguably could have been a good fit.
Jets could have been a good
Like
fit. Yeah,
you needed kind of like a young team with a handful of interesting pieces that kind of needed a culture improvement. I
yeah,
think the Patriots would have been the fit just because Robert Kraft, like for all his faults, Robert Kraft has tried to be a little more like hands on the wheel. Like there's enough institutional competency in history that it's like,
yeah. He can't.
no, you can't be doing silly things like bringing your sons on. You have to build an actual
Yeah,
like coaching staff.
that's true. That does make sense. And
Right.
if
And
his
maybe
sons
that's just
were
a
like accomplished coaches on their own right, different story. But
they ain't
it's
covering it this time around.
yeah,
Um, it's striking because it's like I think maybe that's just a moral of the story with older coaches, and like honestly, it's a story about like any old person in a media field, in the arts, in entertainment, in anything. It's like they can still do it, but they have to have like the people around them to like you know tell them no sometimes. I think
yeah,
one of the biggest flaws you run into as you get older, like successful people get as they're getting older, is like people are afraid to say no to them. And as you get older, you lose that fastball just a little bit and your instincts get just a little worse. And that can be catastrophic. And then you lose sight of the things you were brought on to do in the first place.
yeah. No, there's yeah the like nepotism of talent or coaching. It only works if you can kind of prove yourself outside of that realm.
Hmm.
Like shout out Cody Rhodes, but because like he had like his dad was like one of the guys behind the scenes for since like the 70s till he died. Um,
Hmm.
and like on talent he was a little bit silly, but like behind the scenes he was like the guy.
Hmm.
And like while yes he was part of the reason like Cody got his foot into like the WWE, like Cody was still very talented as an individual. And then he got stuck with a bunch of bad gimmicks, and he was just like, "All right, I'm done here. I'm going to leave." And the question came into hand of like, "Oh, is this guy still going to be good outside of like his daddy's umbrella, basically?"
Hmm.
And the answer was absolutely. The dude put in an insane amount of work. He was well beloved by his like every all the indie promoters and stuff because he was never like, "Oh, I need a former WWE guy budget. I need," and he's just like, "Nah, give me like what do you think is a reasonable thing?" Like, and they're like $500, and he's like, "I'll do it for $500." Um, just to like for like some of the promotions that he like wanted to work for because they were big indies guys, and it's just like, oh shit, he's killing it in Japan. Oh shit, he was less. He like helped spearhead the development of a pay per view, basically that was by indie guys for indie guys.
Right.
And then it was just like, we can make this a real thing. And then started WWE's currently biggest rival. He was a
Hmm.
founding member, and then he was like, that contract's up. WWE, like the people came to me like at my home to make me an offer because they were like, your contract there is up, we want you back. And Cody was just like, yeah, I could go back. But it was like,
Interesting.
yeah, he's got a very fun story.
I really do gotta just get really on the weeds on individual wrestlers now.
Kevin explains professional wrestlers coming soon.
Oh, that would actually. I'm so down for that. But I'm curious what your non-homer pick is. I mean, my homer pick is
Bill's
probably the
getting
Josh
it.
Prom. Well, yeah, probably not drafting Maxwell Harrison and either getting Luther Burden or trying to trade up for Emeka Buka. But
I,
that's less
I
undo
think
a thing and like do a new thing.
I think Mbuka was a pick that was kind of like he went to the right spot at the right time. I
Mhm.
don't think he would have been guaranteed to be as good if he was picked by someone else. But I think the
Mhm.
lose their burden pick should have been the Bills, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think he
especially
should have
now that
gone to
he's coming
Buffalo.
on. Like the last few weeks, he's really come on, and you're like, oh, right, this guy was like a top 10 prospect for most of his career and then had one bad year and fell in the draft. And it's just like, again, Brandon Bean bitches about not being able to get blue chip talent. It's like, well, you got to take flyers on guys like that. Don't just invest in toolsy guys or guys who fit your system or go for positional needs. You have to look at guys like him. You got to look at guys like Will Johnson, the pretty good quarterback for the Cardinals, who was a high prospect before he had knee injuries, and be like, hell, you know who's a good example of that? Cooper DeJean, who was having
Hmm.
back problems during the process. And it's like, well, I've made this joke before, but it's like, well, he's in the upper percentile in all physical stats. He's been a quarterback his entire career and done very well and gotten like all conference consideration. The only problem is he's white.
Yeah.
So what can you do? But it's
Leave
like,
that
yeah,
open for
the
the
Eagles take a fly.
Velociraptor that is fucking Howie Roseman just going, ooh, I want this guy.
Yes, where it's like, yeah, let's take a flyer on him and whatever. We'll have plenty of second round picks to make up for that one later if it doesn't work. It's like, yeah, at some point you have to be like, all right, our 30th pick didn't pan out. Well, the last couple didn't pan out, and why don't we just invest in higher traits? I think if I
Um,
was going to say an individual move, I would probably just say the Palmer trade, just because it's like we can't keep paying wide receivers to not play for this team. It's
I
him and
got,
Curtis Samuel. We
yeah.
spent so much money on both of them.
I would say my non-homer pick is actually it's going to be more of a shift in timeline as opposed to not doing it or doing it. It's going to be doing it
Mhm.
sooner, and it's Flacco to the Bengals. I think that should have had.
Interesting.
I think the that should have been a deal that happened sooner, so the Browns weren't figuring out their Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders like mentality so late. Um,
Hmm.
and like when they're going through like rougher stretch, and I think that it could have put the Bengals on a lot higher of a list of like quality teams.
That is interesting because I do think it kind of solves both problems. Like you get more data on Gabriel and Sanders. And
Yeah,
also, like, again, the Bengals only just got as awful as the season's been. Like,
they just got eliminated right like this
yeah,
last week.
if you turn one of those awful Bajent games into a win, you're still in this.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I think that's a good pick.
I think
I
that
think that, and it also respects the rules of the game for the most part.
yeah, I think just that happening earlier, they needed somebody to replace Bajan a lot sooner, or not even it's not Bajan, it's Browning. Um,
Mhm.
they needed someone to replace Browning a lot sooner than they got. And Flacco was a very good choice and the right choice in my opinion for that like fill in.
Mhm.
But I think that should have happened sooner. And then yeah, the Browns just kind of they're at this point where there's not enough data on both quarterbacks, um, without like injuries and stuff being a factor. And it's just like, is Shador really like gonna be our guy next year? Is it gonna be Dylan Gabriel? Like, who we going with?
Mhm. Exactly.
And next week.
Yes, let's head on to next week.
All right.
I
First
do
off,
love, yeah,
a Saturday game.
two. I think two Saturday
There's
games.
two. The Eagles at
Yeah,
Commanders
I
and
I
Packers
do
at
love.
Bears. Why?
Every now and then we leave notes for our each other in the chat, and I just wrote, "You bastard, you beat me to it." I was also outraged by this. It
It
really is
makes
just.
no
It's
sense.
beautiful how craven and disgusting the NFL is sometimes. Truly, they have a gentleman's agreement with college football. I don't know if it's an official legal thing, but I do think it is just like a courtesy agreement that they will not infringe on Saturday nights. Like, they're like, that's college football. We will respect that. We will, respect the markets. The
Until their
minute the
season
college
ends.
football season, yeah, the minute the season ends and you're in the playoffs, we're cashing in our chips, baby. Saturday games, Friday games, all the games.
Ah,
Yes, we have two
too
matchups.
much. Too much football.
Yeah, again, it really is. And I am so glad that the Christmas lineup has turned into such a dud because at some point, karma needs to come for the NFL and they need to learn the consequences of overextending themselves. Again, at some point, the bubble has to pop, the lines have to go down a little bit, and we need to reset the market. And that is karma for you. But yes, the Saturday games on December 20th. Jesus, we really are a week from Christmas, huh?
Yeah.
Christmas, just a week away. We could do the meme.
Yeah.
Eagles, Washington at 5 o'clock, and Green Bay, Chicago at 8:20. I'm excited for one of those games.
I'm excited for Green Bay, Chicago over the Eagles, Commanders.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, it's a very unhealthy Commanders. So it's another game that it should, like, the Eagles should be the dominant factor in. Just
Right.
saying.
It's kind of crazy after all of that hell and all of that misery for like almost a month of the season. It's back-to-back games where you're like, you need to drop 40 and keep them to like a score, or
You
else we're going to have some conversations.
You need to be the bullies in this situation. But it's man, I'm so upset that there's like Saturday games. I thought it was like mishearing when they talked about it. It was just like Saturday, and I'm like, oh, silly announcer, you slipped up. You mean next Sunday? Nope. I think
it's one thing when they do like the Saturday game for the very last week, because it's like, whatever, it's a novelty. We want to celebrate football.
Yeah.
That we're doing this early with like basically a month of the season left feels like an affront to God.
I hate it. I just outright hate it. And I don't like that. I don't like the games they picked. I mean, I like the Bears Packers, but I feel like the Eagles Commanders should not be that slot. I feel like there isn't enough there to have a spotlight market, if that makes sense.
Right.
And if you have like the spotlight market, you want either like the best versus the best matchups that are happening. To like just completely like crowd favorite, like when they did Chiefs Cowboys at Thanksgiving. It's just like, yeah, these teams aren't the best in their divisions this season, but yeah, you're going for the market on this one. Just the fan bases. And then like a real just kind of like throwaway game where people don't really need to worry about it that much.
Right.
Like, I would much rather see Bengals Dolphins or Jets Saints there than Eagles Commanders. Packers Bears is close enough and good enough that it's like, all right, solo time slot. I would say that's more of a Sunday night game personally.
Right. And I do think it also just is because the Sunday lineup isn't the best. You know, Patriots Ravens has some implications that could be exciting. You know, the Texans still need to win. The Lions are fighting for their playoff lives. But other than that, it's kind of a weak line. You could really benefit from having like the Bears Packers not being a solo slot, but being a de facto solo slot of like the 1 or 4. Yeah,
that could be like the market game, like the out of market game, where if you're not in,
where if your team isn't actively playing, you get this game.
Yeah.
You know what's sad? One of the most interesting games from the Sunday lineup is Cleveland Buffalo, just because Myles Garrett is only 1 sack away from breaking the sack record. And I'm like, do the Bills just run the ball 40 times to keep him from doing it?
That would be better than the Eagles game in that time slot, because at least it's like, all right, let's all watch, like, let's sit around the fire and watch Myles Garrett.
Pretty significant record. Again, this record has lasted for like 3 decades now. And I know TJ Watt tied it, but no one has broken it in a good like 2 decades.
TJ Watt tied it, not broke it. And Myles Garrett has plenty of opportunity. He has like an additional 3 weeks to try and break it. And that's not also just like, oh, I'm just going to break it. I can obliterate this. Because
I was going to say, we're talking about like no one will ever break this again.
It's going to be probably untouched, because it is the Bills, the Steelers, and then the Bengals with their weak-ass offensive line in the final week. And if they don't need to play Joe Burrow, they shouldn't in the final week.
Almost definitely.
So, like...
Yeah, my bigger question is he going to get to 25? Like, is he going to get a quarter century of sacks in a single season?
I think it's possible.
For reference, everyone, the sack record all time is 200, like a clean 200 Bruce Smith. And granted, like they didn't start counting sacks until like, you know, the like 80s. So like Deacon Jones probably would have the record if we counted them, yada, yada, yada. There's some
weird 70s
ambiguity.
Defenses of just insanity and bullying.
Right. Like he would have gotten a an eighth of the all-time record in a single season. And it's not like he's been a scrub the rest of his career.
No,
He's had 10 sacks a year outside his rookie year. He should have more, but except he
he's
missed, and which is especially impressive because one year he only played 10 games because he hit someone with a helmet.
yeah, he's been suspended. He's had injuries. He's
And he
like
just keeps going.
he keeps going. I'm excited for that game. I think that's one of those games where it's like it should have the solo time slot because we're not going to get anything special out of the Eagles and Commanders. There's no records. There's no like one team is more like if the Eagles win, they're in the playoffs. If the Commanders win, nothing happens. That's pretty much it. There's no like there's implications for Packers Bears, but like all right, let's have everyone sit around and let's see if like the Bills are a hot team. Josh Allen is there, and it's like all right, the Browns. We could watch Miles Garrett get a record, and then we could watch him obliterate a record possibly, probably in Week 18. I think he should play
Right.
for the rest of the season unless if he gets hurt, just to stack his
Oh,
record.
they're playing him. They did not spend that much money for him not to play.
Yeah, but yeah, still upset their Saturday games. Stick
Yeah.
to Sundays, Thursdays, and
Gross.
Mondays. Um,
Yeah, it's just again, at some point something has to happen to knock the NFL down a peg to like reset the market.
Yeah.
Because again, it's just like no, it's the same like again, as someone who talks about Disney a lot, it's like this just happens sometimes. You get too big, you try to gobble up too much stuff, everyone gets mad, and then you just need a market correction to reset everything.
I think what's going to have to happen is there's going to be a weekend where they try and like expand a little too much, and there is going to be too many terrible games at time slots where they're going to be like, all right, let's like Thanksgiving and like when Christmas is on a Thursday is kind of an exception, but like this week where it's just like, all right, we got like these Thursday games, and like let's put these two on Saturday, and it's just like, oh, let's do like two on Monday, and no like single
Exactly.
time slot has like a real like wow game. It's just like, ooh, why am I watching a dumpster fire? Let me go to the other game. Oh, I'm watching another dumpster fire. What is going on here? And I think that's what needs to happen, and it's capable of happening at any possible time. You just put the Broncos in a solo time slot, and you'll that's a guaranteed dumpster fire. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Um,
Speaking of next
biggest
week,
games,
I got
yeah,
two.
biggest games of this week. Yeah, I agree with these two. I think they're the right picks.
We have Los Angeles Rams versus Seattle Seahawks. They are technically tied record wise. Seahawks just need to like sneeze and they're in. The Rams are fighting for first
Just
place.
clinched a spot
They
and
just
could get
clinched.
yes.
They're fighting for first overall. Um, it should be a battle of juggernauts. The last time they have met this season, the Rams won by 3. So they
Yes,
have
if
had a
you
close
remember,
standing.
that was a very tight game. The Seahawks had a chance to win the game on a field goal at the end and were unable to cash it in
Yeah,
or tie it. I don't. You said 3 points.
3 points.
I guess that would have been a tie. But
19,
yes, they
21.
managed to march it downfield. This was the game where punts win games because
Yeah,
they punted the Seahawks down to like the 2 yard line. They had to scramble to get there in time and just came up short. Yes, but it should be
I
another exciting game.
yeah, it should be another exciting game. It's two like of the strongest teams of the league. I'm excited to see like we got Puka versus JSN, Stafford versus Darnold. Shout out to Amazon for getting that one. Like, good on them.
Makes all the other ones worth it.
Yeah, that's a Thursday night game. And then the other game, which feels like a very big game, is Steelers Pittsburgh. Or they are
Yes,
Pittsburgh and Steelers. Steelers Detroit.
Steelers Detroit. Yes, Detroit is kind of after losing to the Rams are kind of on the outside looking in. They still have a pretty good shot to make the playoffs, but they are going to have to win out. And they're facing three pretty tough challenges between the Steelers, who have at least showed competency the last couple weeks, the Vikings, who they've always played close, and the Bears, who I feel like could steal one. This is
But also,
basically
that last one, they could steal one against the Bears if the Bears aren't trying, depending if spots are locked in.
true. But yes, it does feel like this is it feels like their playoffs effectively start now, and it will be an interesting game.
Well, here's also the inverse of that is the Steelers department, where if they lose, they might be on the outside. They might be kicked for the
Oh,
Ravens,
right.
because the
Because the Ravens
Ravens,
keep winning.
yeah, the Ravens have the Packers and Patriots, who are two very strong teams, but the Ravens offense is still like a very strong offense. Can make a lot of things happen. They're kind of on this healthy kick. And the Steelers have the Lions and Browns, and if they're kind of on that losing end, it goes to Week 18, where it's Ravens versus Steelers, possibly to determine the division.
Mhm.
Like the Steelers have a hint of a lead now, but it's one game. That's not a lot.
Right. It is a big inside looking out, outside looking in game
Mm-hmm.
where kind of like our narratives from this season were like, obviously the Steelers aren't making the playoffs and obviously the Lions are. So, like, is this a game where that flips?
Yeah, I think it's they're both teams' entire narratives are going to be determined by this game. I
Mm.
think if Detroit loses, they might be. I think that might be season for them. If if Pittsburgh loses, it could also be season for them.
Mhm.
It's such a crapshoot because I mean, Detroit could still make a cheeky wild card seed technically if they lose, but that's
Mhm.
so far from guaranteed compared to
Right.
Pittsburgh, where if they don't make the wild card, they're not in.
Right. Our don't sleep on games. You picked kind of a fun one, Tampa Bay, Carolina.
Yeah, we
The
talked
car-
about it a lot.
yes, kind of for the division. The team with the team with the pedigree coming in versus the upstarts. Kind of a game that will decide what happens to
Hmm.
both teams for next season.
Yeah, a team on higher vibes versus a team on lower vibes. It's going to be it's going to be a game that determines a lot secretly.
Hmm.
Like outside of ranking, I feel like it's going to determine both sides, like any coaching decisions they want to make, any quarterback decisions, any major player decisions they want to make. I feel like is going to be determined in this game.
Right. Meanwhile, I picked Denver Jacksonville, a stealthy secret. This could decide the one seed.
Yep,
The Jacksonville Jaguars at 10-4 actually do have a good track to get the number one seed.
I think that's
They have
crazy.
right. Well, again, it's a testament to like how much parity there is this season, where it's like the best teams right now are 12-2, 11-3, 10-4, and then the Bills and LA are 10-4, but they're both wild card teams. So it is really going to be a fascinating battle between the Patriots, Denver, and Jacksonville as of right now to see who can get that number one seed. And this is kind of one of the big like this gives Jacksonville a huge tiebreaker if they can pull this off.
Yeah, it's going to give them something huge, and it's going to keep them a step ahead of the Texans, because Texans have a little bit of a lighter schedule to finish off
Mhm.
with Chargers and Colts, or Raiders this week, Chargers then Colts, and that's three teams that are kind of falling off. And
Mhm.
I mean, the Jaguars have Broncos, Colts, and Titans, but they could lock it down beforehand, and who knows?
Right. Yeah, these two games really do kind of like honestly kind of set like two or three major playoff spots.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Shall
Anyway,
I wrap us up?
send us home, Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for listening. As I said last week, this is kind of the gut check time. But I would argue this last week kind of raised the stakes even higher. There's going to be a new representative from the AFC this year. There is no doubt about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There is going to, like, the paradigm of the NFL has shifted precipitously. And for just this one season, someone has an opportunity to change their legacy and make history. So I say to this weird little batch of AFC teams, are you going for the crown? Do you got what it takes? Let's find out this week.